What's going on, guys? Okay, so I just got to be real here. West Side Story, the original, wasn't feeling it. This new one, not quite feeling it. But I'm here for a little spoiler, longer, more extended review with a good friend of mine to talk some West Side Story, you guys. Before we dive into this review, if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button for you, boy. We talk the latest movies, TV, with a little sprinkle of anime in there as well. And guys, let's dive into this review. But before we do, let me just tell you a little bit about what this movie is about. So West Side Story is an adaptation of the 1957 musical. West Side Story explores forbidden love and the rivalry between the Jets and the Sharks, two teenage street gangs of different ethnic backgrounds. And this was directed by Steven Spielberg, and it stars Ansel Elgort, Rachel Zegler, Ariana DeBose, David Alvarez, Rita Moreno, and plenty more. And guys, here with special guests from the Film Posers, Josie, to talk about it. What's going on, Josie? How you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me here again. Always fun chatting with you, and can't wait to chat about West Side Story.
Yeah, let's talk some West Side Story because you were very vocal about it after watching the movie. You got to see it went last week as well, and
yeah, it was
just
the first screening they had here. I snuck my way in.
ooh,
No, I was able to go with a friend.
nice. All right, first screening. Look at you. That's
Yeah,
tight.
I was a +1, so I did not get an invitation. That says a lot.
You gonna
But
get
I still saw the film, so they can't keep me away.
exactly. You still caught it. So let's just talk initial reaction. What did you think stepping right out of the theater after seeing it? And also let me know your thoughts on the first one, because I had expressed at the beginning of the video, not a fan of the first, still not a fan, but let me know what you thought of the first one and then this one.
Not.
And the first one has a lot of problems, as we
Yeah.
know. So let me know.
Yeah, I am not a fan of the first one as much as most people are, surprisingly, because with this remake coming out, a lot of people have been expressing how much they love the first one, which surprises me because I didn't know there was this much love for West Side Story. And I do consider this new one to be better than the first because it kind of works as damage control for a lot of what was wrong in the first one. So it already is an improvement on that first one because of that. But it's genuinely because of that, you know?
Yeah, you're right. It kind of just cleans up some of the problems of the time that were used.
Because a lot of people said, just very quick, because it just, I find it's amusing that a lot of people are like, oh, it's very hard to top the first one. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's racist.
Right. I mean, the brown facing, the misrepresentations, it was just bad in that first one. It's like, okay, this isn't even legit. These people aren't even Puerto Rican. They just painted up with brown face. And I'm like, I know how I feel about blackface. That sucks. Didn't really like that. And then the musical numbers seemed a little wild and out of control sometimes. A lot tighter here. The visuals and I mean the cinematography and camera work is just another level here. That's that shot of the Sharks and the Jets like approaching each other and their shadows like merging. Woof! I mean, Spielberg know what he doing, y'all.
Yeah,
but,
he does.
Like it just, even besides just some of the damage control, he brings so much more in his version. He brings more visuals. He brings a lot more depth to these characters. I don't recall Riff having this much depth in the first one,
which
or his father.
Yeah, which I really did like because it added more depth to him as a villain because he is a villain. And even though I still like, it's plain and simple because they keep antagonizing, and this one they antagonize the Sharks even more, like defacing the flag and those little details. And it's simply because they're racist. They're discriminating against the Puerto Ricans. But they try to add more like to humanize him. And at least, like, regardless of how that character is handled, I did think Mike Feist did a good job with the role.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he brought a whole new energy to it to where you could at least understand why Riff is doing what he's doing. And he's not just like some random street punk like he was in the first one. There's a little bit more to his story, and even to characters like Anita, Bernardo. They have a lot more here than they did in the original. And it just goes to show that bringing in a powerhouse director like Steven Spielberg really opened up these characters and just allow for better storytelling as a whole. Whereas that first one, I was just I'm not even in front, Josie. I was like, I'm lost. Like,
Yeah.
y'all, 1 minute y'all are telling this story and trying to, then the next minute everybody jumping around and these over extravagant dance numbers that just feel like they belong on Broadway only just did not translate well for me.
Yeah. Because it was also, at least here, Spielberg is able to create a setting. It feels less like a stage, which was probably what they had in the first one. And you're able to actually move through the environment and actually see the New York that through their eyes. So you're able to see the West Side through their perspective, especially Lincoln Center, and like that background that area used to have a vibrant Puerto Rican community. Well, first it started as a Black community, and then it started becoming like a Puerto Rican community, and then all of them were displaced and moved because of Lincoln Center. So that's why that first shot is at the beginning, and that's what they're criticizing in the film, because it used to be called San Juan Hill. And that's basically what it dives into the film, that he was able to add a little bit more historical context that the first one didn't have.
That's cool, because yeah, that first one did not have historical context.
No, nothing. Because originally it was supposed to be a rivalry between Jews and Irish Catholics, and then supposedly they got inspired by the rivaling gangs like Chicanos in Chicago. But since it was still in New York, they changed it to Puerto Rican, since Puerto Ricans were like the most predominant Latino culture in New York at that time, and still you kind of see it. But like the Puerto Ricans had a very huge migration around the 1940s and 1950s up to the 1960s. That was like the biggest moment.
And this is where when this takes place, right? The 40s.
Yeah,
50s.
1957.
Okay. So all right. I mean, it tried to do that.
Yeah.
The first one. I mean, it tried. Whether it succeeds or not, I was like, these guys are a little clean cut for gangs, but I digress.
The shirts, like the button downs here, I like I did enjoy that detail where like Bernardo's like wearing his sleeveless shirt, and he's always wearing like the little bands because he is a boxer. So I like that they at least gave him a background, like they made them more three-dimensional.
Yeah. And even the side characters, like everybody looks a little more scruffy and a little like, I was like, this is the detail that the first was missing. It's like, these guys aren't running around in clean white shirts looking all cute all the time. Like, I'm like, nah, man, this ain't right. If you don't represent, like, you know, these guys scrapping in the streets, come on now. This ain't a little too much in that first one. But the second one buttons it well. So let's talk a little bit about, we've kind of talked a little bit about it. Let's talk a little bit about like some of the things that maybe this one didn't do as well as the first one. Are there any things that you feel the first one may have gotten a little better than this one? I'm gonna be real, there's not much.
I can't think of anything at the moment. What about you?
I did like Tony and Maria a little bit more than that first one. Just their chemistry.
Chemistry, yeah. We were talking about this before, so I like to mention that the actor that played Tony was definitely more, he flowed very much better than Ansel. Ansel is a little bit stiff, which shout out to Kristen Maldonado, because we actually recorded an analysis of Puerto Rican culture in this remake, and we mentioned that too. So we're not the only ones that noticed that. I think everyone's noticing that Ansel just kind of didn't play much with his setting and what he was giving, and that actually affected a lot of Rachel's performance because their chemistry really wasn't there. So I was really more drawn to Anita and Bernardo instead of Tony and Maria. And then at one point I was like, my perception of it changed. I'm like, this is really Anita and Bernardo's story, and then these two punks are falling in love and causing trouble.
I mean, if we wanted to go with that description, I probably would have liked the movie better, if I'm being honest. If the focus was on those two, because
these two Puerto Ricans that are in love, and then this little girl falls in love with an American and just starts causing trouble. Because then she out here asking like, hey, you knew love once, Anita. Yes, she did, until your boy killed her boyfriend.
Who is your brother? Like,
yeah.
I think that for me, even the original story, and I get it, Romeo and Juliet, Romeo killed Juliet's cousin. I get these things, but I'm like, okay, it doesn't work here for me, y'all. It just
No.
don't work. Like, that is her brother. They grew up together. They've lived together for their whole lives. Maybe there was like a
Mm-hmm.
period of 5 years that they mentioned, but besides that, I'm sure they grew up together, running around chasing dogs together. I mean, it's like, come on, you will really allow this guy that you just met to kill your brother, and you will
Mm-hmm.
still love him. And that was so problematic that they slept right after that. I was like, why would you guys, rock the boat right after
Yeah.
that? That is just,
Yeah.
that
It
was
felt weird.
executed so poorly to me. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember how it went down in the first one, but I'm like, it probably went down a little bit better than that, because that was very
In the
strange.
first one, it was more discreet. Like you couldn't really tell if they had slept together or not because, of course, it was the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, it was a little bit not graphic, but you could tell that they had slept together, as happens in Romeo and Juliet. And I was hoping that Spielberg would change that, because the first time you see it and you're like, it's again like the love story doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And Romeo and Juliet, like a lot of people have their gripes with it because people call it a love story, but really it's a tragedy. It's not a love story. And calling this one also a love story kind of diminishes all the it's a dark play, and
Yeah.
people are dying. It's like that Kim Kardashian moment where it's like, Kim, people are dying. But with Maria.
Oh yeah, I think that was probably the biggest problem of the original to me. That,
Mhm.
like you, I was like, please, Spielberg, find a way to clean this up, because I
Mhm.
just thought maybe there would be more conflict there. There would be more of like an inner battle.
Yeah.
No, not
No.
really. I mean, they look at each other. He's like, I'm sorry. I don't even think he says sorry. And
No,
they
she
just go
kisses
into
him,
it. Yeah, I'm like,
which that wasn't
what?
there in the first one, if I remember correctly. Like she really went for it, and I was like, oh.
Yes. I was just like, okay, and y'all's chemistry been dry the whole time. So this happens. And I'm just like, I'm sorry. I just can't believe it.
Mhm.
Now, and it was weird because the song with Anita, wasn't that in a different place in the original?
I think it was along the same lines, though a little tidbit about this one is that I know it was sung live on the during while they were
Oh.
recording.
Maybe it was I Feel Pretty. I think one of the songs
I
was
Feel
like in a
Pretty
different
was the
spot.
yeah, it was I Feel Pretty. I Feel Pretty was right after she meets Tony, and then this one, it's right after a bunch of people die, and I'm like, this feels jarring. This is whiplash. It was I was very confused because I think in the original musical and the stage production, I Feel Pretty is the second act opener, which makes sense because it is a wake up number. Like people are
Mm-hmm.
coming back from the intermission, they're sitting back down. It's like, hey, remember, we're in a musical. But again, there's an intermission there. And this one, there is no intermission. You just killed off a bunch of kids, and now you're singing about feeling pretty.
I know. I mean, it went from like a shot of Bernardo and Riff laid on the ground to that.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, okay. I don't really feel pretty, ma'am. Not after
No.
what just happened.
Maybe if Spielberg did it on purpose, then I'd like to hear the reasoning behind that. Maybe like some in the future, some cinema studies class is going to be like, it's so jarring because it criticizes the way that I don't know.
Somebody will dig up something positive to say about it, and it'll make you think, maybe there's a little something to say there. But
It
I
talks
don't know.
about the American dream, how we think it's pretty, but it's not. Look at all these people dying.
And all of us overworking. But okay, yeah. Just back to Tony and Maria.
Hmm.
Brass tacks. Ansel and Rachel just together, and I think I'm gonna kind of give Rachel a little bit of a pass here, and the reason why is it's her first big role, and I
Hmm.
was like, okay, I feel like if she had an actor who could guide her through some of
Hmm.
them scenes and really form some good chemistry with her, maybe, in my opinion at least, she's getting praise, so
Yeah.
sounds like things worked. But I just think for me, it would have fleshed her character out and her acting abilities out a lot better if you
Hmm.
brought somebody in who could really help and really form that relationship in
Yeah.
front of the camera with her. It just didn't feel, I don't know, it felt like a can of paint talking to a brick wall. I just was not feeling it. I was just like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because she's really a vocal powerhouse.
Oh,
I will give that to
wow,
her.
for real.
Um, yeah. But when it came to the acting, it's that you could definitely tell that this was like her first big role. And she has some musical theater before, but there is a difference between doing musical theater and acting for the camera. And there were a lot of moments that I could tell that she still had that stage essence for the camera. And you need to shift that a little bit because the camera's so close. And she still did a good job. I was just more drawn to people around her more, like especially Ariana DeBose.
Oh, she was great.
Yeah, she really carried every single scene she was in. And whenever she spoke, I was like, this is her Oscar clip.
Right? I'm like, oh, she's awesome, dude. Nominate her for supporting actress, please.
Yeah, she's been getting love so far, so I hope that keeps going.
Yes, that's good to hear. Like, she really kept me in the movie. I'm gonna be real with you. Like, I don't think I'd be in the movie without her, Bernardo. And I actually like following like Riff and Tony. I was like, okay, the scenes between those two, this rivalry, and it really does.
They had more chemistry. Mike and Ansel.
The freaking Ansel and Rachel.
Yeah, because it was just this whole bro dynamic, and you could tell like at least Mike really carried those scenes because like I will give him praise. I think he did a really good job. If he actually made me care about this character, was so mean to Puerto Ricans, I'm like, I should hate you, but you're doing a good job. Especially in his final moment, he acted like rent was due.
Right. Our guy went to the end like
he's like, I have to pay rent tomorrow. I need that paycheck now.
Right now. Yeah, I definitely liked Riff's character. Well, I didn't like him, but I could follow him a lot easier in this one because it was just racist in the first one, but it's racist here, but it's still like, okay,
he's a person.
You come from a bad background and like, okay. And there's like a mention in one of their songs where I think they were singing in the prison and they were like talking about the families that they come from and stuff. I was like, okay, you guys come from a pretty bad background. Like, they gave these guys a little more.
Yeah, because Riff's whole thing is that he was ready to die until the very end when he finally changes his mind because it's happening. And you're like, oh, I don't know. That got to me. It was literally how Mike played it out because you see it in his eyes. He doesn't say anything. You're just like, wow, this person that was so ready to die, he's in this entire time. He was like, yeah, I'm a man. I can handle anything. When he puts the gun to his head, he's like, do it. Like, he's ready. And then when it finally comes for him, you see the regret in his face and you're like, oh, this dude, again, rent was due.
Yeah, it was like such a powerful moment and he didn't have to say a single word. Great physical acting right there. Just expressing it all through the facial expressions.
And then David Alvarez with his machismo. I was like, look at Bernardo.
Duking up. Like, I was like, oh, Bernardo ain't backing out, y'all. He's like tagging Tony in the gut. And
as he should.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, this is just, it felt so much more intimidating than in that first one. Like the dancing and doing it. Like, it just doesn't work as a dance
that scene
number.
was very intense.
Yes.
That fight, it was more intense in this one than in the first one. And also a very weird little thing that I loved about this film was the sound design. For some reason, I was very drawn to the sound design in this film because I don't know what Spielberg did. It was just good. But it came to the point where in that scene specifically, like I felt like the punches were coming to me because they were so loud. And my screening, the punches, I felt like I got punched because they were so loud.
For real? Jeez.
Yeah.
My screening just had the, regular punch sound effect.
No, those punch sounds were like very intense. I was like, okay. So whenever Bernardo would like punch Tony, I'm like, ouch.
I know, it's like just a quick little. I'm like, damn, my man is tagging him. Like, woo.
And also, that one scene where they changed "Cool." I don't know the exact title of the song. I would like to assume it's that one. I liked how they changed it in this one because it was no longer them getting ready for the Rumble, but mostly Tony trying to dissuade Riff from doing anything. And that dynamic I really liked because, again, they had good chemistry and it was nice seeing how they interacted with each other. And it was just a really good way to heighten tension in the film.
Yeah, and it really just characterizes those characters even more because in the original, he had respect for Tony, but I just, outside of that, I'm like, I don't really know
Here they're bros.
Yeah, here they're like close. They're like, we grew up together type of, we
Mm-hmm.
cut each other's palms and put each other's blood in hands. Like that's the bond that they present
Mm-hmm.
here. Whereas in that original, it was like, oh yeah, like Tony's coming back. Yeah, Tony's like one of the best ones. He's the co-founder. Cool. Okay.
And he was
Other than
like
that, it was
way
like,
sweeter in that first one. Like he seemed like a stand-up guy, and
yeah.
all of these white gang members just like, yeah, Tony's gonna be here and he's gonna beat you up. And then it's just this guy singing and dancing in the rain.
And he's like, here are my jars full of
Yeah.
plants and love. And I'm like, hell no. This dude ain't who they described.
So in this one, they like gave him that background where, like, not really spoilers, it's at the beginning of the film. Like here Tony comes back from jail from juvie.
Almost killing someone.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's like, oh yeah, he's a tough guy here.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, my man. Not my man, but seriously, Tony just went in. So, okay, I gotta ask that. We'll flip the script. What did this do better? And I know pretty much everything, but like, what specifically did this really do a lot better than the first? Like, let me know.
I will give them props for changing the lyrics of America.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of Puerto Ricans detest about this film, because of course you go from saying Puerto Rico, my heart's devotion, let it sink back in the ocean, to Puerto Rico, you lovely island, land of tropical breezes. Because the first time, if you've seen, for people that haven't seen it, Rita Moreno has a documentary that came out this year, which is called Just a Girl Who Decided to Go For It. And she even describes how the first time that they started learning the lyrics, they were actually worse. So it was like Puerto Rico, something, something, you land of diseases, or something like that. The lyrics were even worse the first time around, and they managed to change them because she actually spoke up about it. So then it ended up being Let It Sink Back in the Ocean, which still wasn't that good.
Yeah, that sucks.
But for this time around, Stephen Sondheim, R.I.P., was on set and he changed the lyrics. So we got that.
Rest in peace.
Yes. Bare minimum, but it does make a difference.
That's good, because do you feel the Puerto Rican representation in this movie was better?
They tried.
Yeah.
And they tried a lot more in this one. Like there was actually an attempt, and you can tell that because a lot of people did bring up a lot of things to Spielberg. He held a town hall and at my university back home, University of Puerto Rico. And he actually spoke to professors and people on campus. And a lot of them did bring up concerns that he did address in the film, and he did change. So you could tell he listened. But it's just one of those things where it's not authentic because it's not coming from a Puerto Rican. And no matter how many consultations or how many people you talk to, you can't recreate those sorts of things. You could add them, but there's only so much you could do as an outsider.
Gotcha. So do you feel that way about Rachel? Because I'm going to be real with you. I kind of got the caricature vibe from her. And I don't know if I was picking up on that, just from an outside in perspective, but I was just kind of like, I don't know. Is this really you?
It stems mostly from the fact that this is being promoted as a Latina story when really it's not even Latina. It's not Puerto Rican. It's just a story about these two rivaling gangs. I don't think it's specific to the Latino culture. And when you go into it with that mentality, it's so easily to create like that caricature where you're trying to interpret different types of parts of the culture into this one character. But really, the Puerto Rican experience is so different from the Mexican experience and the Colombian experience. Like we're not a monolith. It's very peculiar. So I was drawn more to Ariana's performance because you could tell that she was connecting to her culture as opposed to maybe Rachel trying to connect with her Colombian heritage to try to portray that character. But it's different because also she grew up in New Jersey with her Colombian heritage. And there's already, like, it's different if you were to be born from Puerto Rican parents, and because also like Puerto Ricans have citizenship. Every other culture, Latino culture, does not have that same experience. So it already changes the narrative, and it's a little bit more
Mm.
difficult to connect to that history and that context.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm gonna be real with you. I just was like watching and I was like, I don't know if this is like her, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
authentic to her. And that's just kind of how it felt to me. I just felt a
Yeah, it's
little,
very disconnected.
yeah. And it didn't help with the Tony stuff. And I'm just
Mm-mm.
like, man. And I don't know about you, but their age difference really showed. And I wonder if it
Yeah.
was like during the time of filming, because I know she was 18 and I think he was 25 at the time.
She
But
was casted when she was 17.
oh, see, I was just like watching and I just thought he looked a lot older than her, even though he's not. He
Mm-hmm.
still looked older than her, and it was just like a little weird to me. Like, I don't know. When I saw them together, I was like, my man looking like he'd be her uncle. I don't know. I couldn't deal with it. I don't know. And it doesn't help that he looks maybe a little older. Look, outside of physical, it just
Mm-hmm.
didn't quite work, their chemistry. But visually,
Yeah, because yeah, Tony and Maria looked a lot similar in age in the first one.
yes. And in this one, I'm like, uh-oh. But any final thoughts about this movie, Josie? West Side Story? Is it making your top 10? Any final thoughts?
No. No, it is not. It's not a top 10 film. I think Spielberg did a good job with the visuals. I know a lot of people are gonna love this film. My only thing is, please stop promoting this as a Latina film or a film for the Latina community, because it's not.
Yeah, and sadly, it just seems like that's the wagon that they're gonna go with in some cases. Like, oh, maybe not. Yank that cord out. Yeah, I think for me as a non like huge musical movie fan, and also all the other issues, including the chemistry between the two leads, it just for me was a flop. And I know it's not. I know visually and cinematically, it
It has
does have
good things.
so many good elements, but just the core of the story is those two. And they didn't. Oh, we forgot to talk about Rita being back.
Oh, yes. She added a lot to the film. She did add a lot of heart. As an executive producer, I'm sure that she got a lot of creative freedom, and I'm glad what she did with it. I do wish the recreation of the scene with Ariana as Anita had been different in this film, and I won't get
Same.
into detail because I just don't want to talk about it. But I didn't like it in the first film. I didn't like it in the second one. I wish they hadn't done it.
I was messaging you at the time of the second film, and I was like, I don't like that. Like, I just did not like that at all. I was like,
It's
are
a
they
bad
putting their hands
scene.
on
It's
Rita?
traumatizing.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all, and I didn't like it here either. So
No, because it actually emphasizes how bad it is. Like, they tried to make it better, and it just made it worse.
yeah.
Because again, just real quick, you have the Jets girls like banging on the door, and you're like, this is giving me anxiety.
I know, which is just, oh man, that scene was a little much. I just wish it was eliminated altogether. I was like, I don't know why that couldn't have just been nixed.
But well, she needs motivation to lie.
Yeah.
So I think we could have gotten it a different way. But you live and you learn.
Right. And I did like her, and I liked like the connection to the first film. I like that she was, I guess this is a spoiler review, so she's married to Doc from the first film. I like that. I was like, okay, get a little connection in there. Like that. So, and Rita, I like her character in that role a little bit more. More than Doc. I was like, yeah, I don't even really miss Doc, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now, if it's Doc from Back
good.
to the Future, I'm gonna miss him.
Oh yeah, always. We love Doc from Back to the Future. Yes. But her solo was really nice. Just her in general, her scenes with Tony were actually funny.
Yeah.
Because she was the heart and soul of those scenes. And she's still a powerhouse. She still got it.
Yeah, hell yeah, she does. And I don't know if I necessarily liked her singing that song though.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, I feel like that was like the Tony Maria moment. And I guess for me, it kind of took away from it a little, but I still like Rita's vocals. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I was just like, I don't know if maybe her singing that, I give her another tune. But shoot, Rita can still blow. She sings good. Like, I'm like, look, them pipes is ready to go. Okay. Shoot, I liked her in the movie. Brought a lot of good presence, and they made some changes to gosh, what's the other dude's name? Chino? Yeah,
Yes, I
Chino.
liked him. Okay, bringing him up if we're gonna continue. I
Yes.
liked him. I really was impressed with the actor. He
Mm-hmm.
made me care for Chino.
Yeah.
Because usually I don't care about that character when it comes to Romeo and Juliet. I'm like, Paris, go away. Let Romeo and Juliet be lovers and eventually die. Go away, Paris. But here, I really liked what he brought to the character. I could feel for him because he just wanted to be like Bernardo.
Mm-hmm.
So his turn in the end really makes sense.
Yeah, his flip does make sense, and you kind of feel for him because sometimes people just don't have the circumstances to be like that. He wasn't the boxer, he wasn't the leader, but you could tell he wanted to be involved and he wanted to, in his opinion, fight for his country.
Yeah, he was a really sweet man. He had a bright future ahead of him compared to like what Bernardo was saying, and he just wanted to be like the others, just defend the community from the Jets.
Yes, exactly. He wanted to be involved. But okay, Josie, we've talked for a good while. Out of 10, where you going? And then let people know where they can find you and what you got coming up.
I am right in the middle at a 5.
Okay, you're
like
lower
5 to
than
6. 5 to 6. I remember when I first saw it, I was gonna give it a 7, but I think it's just I had a lot of conflict with this film and how I still haven't rated it for real. So I'm still going between like 5 and 7, but 5 and 6 sounds a lot better. Because it's a problematic story. We have to call it as it is, and it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's exactly what my review says. It's problematic.
Mm-hmm.
But let the people know where they can find you and what you got coming up.
Yes, if you want to hear me talk more about West Side Story, you can find me at the Josie Marie on Twitter and Letterboxd, and you can also find Film Posers at Film Posers on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
Guys, follow these brilliant content creators on their journeys. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Y'all, if I had to give this a rating, I'm going with like a 6 out of 10. Like, I think it crosses the line over 5 for me because of some of the cinematic elements that it brings to the table and fixing that story up from some of the huge issues the first one had. But it doesn't pay off on where it needs to pay off, unfortunately. And while it's better, it's not like, wow, they just completely fixed everything. Like, there's still problems. So, but guys,